Working 3 jobs in the United States is not for the weak and I do not recommend it. What's up everybody? Welcome to my channel where we don't do and think like the average person out there. Just kidding, you have to do what you have to do. So if you have to work 10 jobs to make ends meet, then by all means work 10 jobs. Guys, at one point in my life I was working 3 jobs in the United States. That was about in 2015 on the work and travel program, student work and travel program. I'm telling you, like literally at one point, after 4 months of working, I couldn't feel my feet. Like I would be at Wendy's dropping fries and I could barely stand up sometime. Like I was so tired, I was so exhausted. It was like I couldn't go on anymore. Those days, it was from one job to the next, literally. So it would be from like Wendy's to Walmart to Sheraton Hotel, right? And sometimes it was literally when I was on my way to work, like I was leaving from Walmart to Sheraton on the way to work. Like literally, I would stop under a bridge and change my shirt just to get to work because you don't have time to go home, shower, and do all of those nice things again, when you're on the clock, you're staying on the clock and you want to make as much money as possible because you're working for money and time is money, right? If you're not on the clock, you're not making any form of money. All times the goal is to be on the clock, so you're going to be doing anything not to waste any time, and that's literally what I was doing. So basically I'll just change my shirt most of the time. Well, because I was a little bit unruly, the same pants I wore at Walmart I could wear it at Wendy's and I could also wear it at the hotel. Well, I was breaking the rules a little bit, but you have to do what you have to do sometimes. And I mean, sometimes some rules don't make any sense, right? So that's what I did. I was literally from one job to the next, and I was on my little yellow bicycle. I don't forget that bicycle. Right now, if I think I go back to Alaska, I can find that bicycle anywhere. For me, it was the first time I'm making so much money in my life because the minimum I was making per hour was about $9.50. If you're gonna work out that to Jamaican dollars, then it was about $1,000 per hour. Not to mention Walmart, where I was getting like $11.50 per hour, somewhere there about. And at one point, I was saying, boy, this amount of money, I will not be making this in Jamaica, like from a corporate job. And guess what? A lot of individuals experience the same thing, and solely on this, they make a decision not to return. They run off. And in those days, it was like a literal competition to see who could clock the most hours for the week, because the more hours you clock, the more money you make. And it was like a competition. So if I made 70, it's gonna motivate somebody else to do 80, so on and so forth. So it was good. But what I realized is that these things are just a phase in life. If you ask me now if I want to work that hard, I'm going to tell you no. I want to work 2 hours per day now. When a lot of individuals have this experience and they make the conversion, they decide to run off and not come back. But is it really worth it sometimes? Is it really better? Does this comparison make any sense at all? And most of the times you'll see this comparison on social media a lot of time. I'm making $800 per week. In Jamaica, I was making minimum wage. What you will never see is the expenses. You'll never see anybody do a side-by-side comparison of the expenses. Well, I'm not going to be going deep into the expenses, and guys, it's America. You can readily research and find all the information available and validate and do the comparison. So for example, back then I was still in college, and finally I still had a roommate. We're paying approximately $10,000, $12,000 per month for rent. Now, in America, I had 4 roommates and we were paying about $100 per week. So that's basically $400 per month, right? So if I was to work that as a single room, it would be $1,200 for the room. In Jamaica, it would be $24,000 per month in comparison to the United States. So you see the big gap? Almost 6 times more I would be paying for rent. So to keep things simple, I'll be working in US dollars for both Jamaica, and I'll be keeping the conversion rate at 100 to 1 because that was way back in 2015. And if you know anything about life, expenses are always going up and are rising at a faster pace than your income in most cases, right? So the standard of living then will be way better than what it is now on the same salary. So then I was making basically $800 per week, while in Jamaica a lot of people working in corporate, right, we're not making $150,000 good. And this is the type of comparisons you will see. I'm making $800 per week in the States, and if I was even in a corporate job in Jamaica, you will not be making X amount of money. Right? That's a typical comparison you will see. I mean, why come back to Jamaica? Why not run off? I'm making $800 per week, right? So let's go back to the rent for a minute. So basically, my take-home pay, net pay, right, would be $3,200 in America then, working night and day, right? And my rent alone would be $1,200. That 38% of my income, almost 50. So I'm working night and day, and then most of my money would be going to rent. How does that make sense? Now, once it comes on to working certain types of jobs in the state like the Walmart, the Wendy's, once you have your credit score good, you can always get a car to credit. Now, automatically, you're going to have a car payment. You're going to have car insurance. Up front, the car is cheaper when compared to Jamaica, but by the time you don't pay insurance monthly, you almost buy a next car within the next 5 years. So let's say I was there and I purchased a car cash, I would be paying say about $100 for insurance. So now I have $1,900 to live on, right? I have $1,900, so that would be like 190,000 Jamaican dollars. But that's after sacrificing my time, working night and day, no time for myself. How sustainable is that? I don't think that's sustainable. Now, after 4 months, I could barely keep up, right? Imagine doing this 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, like you got dead quick. And guess what? You don't want to end up in an hospital or a doctor's office without any form of insurance. That time you will know what expenses are. So when I came back to Jamaica, right, I was making about $1,400 per month. Way less than what I was making in America, right? But guess what? I was working 8 hours only. I didn't have to be breaking my neck to get from one job to the next. I was working less hours. Up front, it was less money, but guess what? After paying my rent, assuming I was in a single room, then I would be left with basically what I paid for rent per month in the United States. So I basically left with $1,200, which was my rent in the States. As a young youth then, wasn't exposed to money, wasn't really financially literate or anything like that. Like, I couldn't really wrap my head around it. Like, why pay so much money for rent? Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. That's just the honest truth. And again, guys, this was my experience. And a very important thing to note regarding the rent is that in the States, basically, it's like you don't really have much control over how much you pay for rent. What do I mean by this is that, like, the base you could probably find somewhere for rent, like a one bedroom now in the States, is $1,200 per month, probably 15, the base, right? So let's say right now the base you could really find somewhere to rent for in America for a one bedroom is $1,200 per month. Now, if you're going to try and find somewhere for less than that, how far are you going to have to move from the next major city? How far are you going to live? Now, if you live in Jamaica, you have options. In Kingston, you have rent going up to $1,500 now, right? But that's Kingston. You don't have to pay it. You have the choice to move to Spanish Town, move to Golden Spring. You can even go Harborview, and you're still close to the major town. You can even move to Clarendon, right? And travel to Kingston if you just want to avoid that high cost of rent. However, the trade-offs will be there. But in terms of geographical distance, how far will you have to move from the major city in the States just to get a lower rent? Well, I can tell you have to move a very long distance. And knowing how individuals stay, they are not really going to move to location where the rent is for like $700-800 per month. They're not going to do that. And again, how far is that from the major city? So when you do the conversion and say, oh, it's more if it was in Jamaica, guess what? You may end up with the same standard of living like you were in Jamaica, or even worse. That's just the reality. You may end up in a situation where you're worse than if you're in Jamaica. But yes, it looks like more money, but life expenses will take everything away. But what you have to understand most of the time is where the individuals are coming from that are making these comparisons. So like then I was broke and I wasn't used to money. It was the first time I'm seeing like $1 million, right? Because that's how I basically came by my first $1 million. That I worked there. When I came back, I stored it in US still, but I converted it theoretically, and that's how it worked out to like $1 million Jamaican. But if I was in America, that wouldn't have any value there. So it would be just like $10,000. It wouldn't have any value there. It's like literally useless to an extent. That's how I look at it. Now, what you have to understand is that most of the time, these comparisons are coming from individuals like who were unemployed, they were on minimum wage, they could barely get a job in Jamaica, right? And when they moved to the States, then this would be like life-changing money to them, right? So when the comparisons are being made, it's good to compare the expenses as well and do an apples to apples comparisons, right? So you can't be comparing grapes in the States to grapes in Jamaica. That's unfair. It's going to be cheaper where it is produced versus where it is imported. Or if you want to do literal apple, then you compare this to like the how to eat apple. For example, I paid about $1.50 for a 6 out to eat apple in Jamaica. Now, if you go to the States and buy 6 of this, how much is it going to cost? So you have to compare apples with apples. What I understand is that everything is a stage in life, so you just gotta do what you gotta do. Say if you have to work 3, 4 jobs, you just have to do it. But you still have to ask yourself, how much time are you going to sacrifice, right? Just to make some money. You should be looking to work less. You should be looking to work 1 hour per day and make the same amount of money that you're working in 8, 9, 10, 11 hours. I mean, it's possible. So for individuals who are looking to run off, like, question, when you say run off, is it that as them come off of the plane and just run off like that and That's something that you really have to think long and hard about, because I don't think unnecessary hardship on yourself is really worth it in somebody's country. To me, how I look at it, it's better to be in Jamaica where I'm free. Basically, depending on where you live, you don't really need money to live, than to be in another man's country struggling, working day and night just to make ends meet. I mean, you still have to do what you gotta do, but you really have to think about it. So that is for now, guys. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.